Hi, I'm Paul from the Studio Rats, and I'm at Emerald Guitars today over in Donegal in Ireland. And as you walk through the door, you're greeted with this. This is Steve Vai's ultrazone guitar. When Steve Vai did the ultrazone album, Alistair from Emerald Guitars basically created this guitar for Steve Vai. So originally the artwork on the album cover, the guitar didn't exist. So Alistair from Emerald Guitars created an exact copy of the guitar and gave it to Steve Vai. Now Steve Vai, apparently, I haven't seen this, but I've been told by the boys here that he actually plays this live. And I've got to be honest, this is one of the hardest guitars that I've ever played in my life. Emerald have started building jazz guitars. So what have we got here? It's basically a set of EMG, I guess it's an 85 because that's got a lot of output and a couple of SA pickups. Got a 5-way selector switch and the usual sort of tone controls. But we've also got this Steinberger trem system, which I haven't seen since the 80s. And then we've got these lights that take us from, so that takes us into warp speed, so I can actually play faster when that light's on. And that one there, that sort of pumps my blood around the guitar, so I can play even faster than that. Now, I'm trying to think what I can say with this now. I'll cut there because my humour is probably is a little bit dry for most people. Let's hear what it sounds like. It's amazing. And I'll try and play some sort of Steve Vai riffs. Badly, obviously. While I'm here, what I thought I'd do is grab Alistair Hay. So Alistair owns Emerald Guitars and is the man behind the whole shebang. What I thought I'd do is just to get Alistair to explain his story about the Ultra guitar, because I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, well, really it's the origin story of Emerald Guitars.
Yeah.
And it's music is so impactful, and I've experienced it a number of times along my life, but the first time I really experienced it was the first time somebody introduced me to the music of Steve Vai.
Yeah.
So I went to college and I hadn't played guitar. I was a guitar nut. Anytime I could find guitar music or anytime I ever saw a guitar, I can almost remember it. But I never actually bought a guitar. I never got guitar lessons. There was nobody in my family playing guitar. But I went to college, and the first week of college I met this guy, Donal, great guitar player, Donal McAteer. And he started to introduce me to all this guitar music I'd never heard of before. Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Jason Becker, Yngwie Malmsteen, all the greats.
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. But the one that totally blew my mind was Steve Vai. Steve Vai's Passion and Warfare. I mean, it's such an iconic album. But it just, it was the music that I had kind of dreamed of in my head but didn't know existed. So it had such an impact on me that the very next week after hearing it, I got Donald to come along with me and help me pick out a guitar. And
you'd never played guitar before that?
Never played guitar before. But obsessed with the guitar.
Yeah.
So we went off, found a local guitar store, bought a pearlescent white Strat copy, an Encore Strat copy. Really beautiful guitar. Not a great playing guitar, but look nice. And I started learning guitar. But that was the start. And I never became a great guitar player, but that was the start of it. So I went through college, went to America and got this crazy idea to build a carbon fiber guitar. Came back to Ireland and started messing around with designing and developing carbon fiber guitars. I'd made maybe 20 or 30, never for sale, So after about the second one, I decided that was what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I was hooked. That this is my thing.
Awesome.
And so it wasn't the easiest direction to want to take for your career. There's not any book that you can buy on how to build a carbon fiber guitar. But I set about doing it. Built one guitar, it was okay, but I thought I could do better. Tried again. Most of the guitars were actually screwed to the roof of my workshop.
Are they?
Yeah.
I was going to say, so at the time, was there anyone else doing carbon fiber guitars?
When I started at the very beginning, Rain Song had started like a couple of years previous.
Okay, and I guess Steinberger had carbon
Steinberger
fiber
had been doing things, Ovation.
Yeah.
And in fact, some of the inspiration for me trying a carbon fiber guitar was borrowing a friend's Ovation with the fiberglass back. And I was working building Formula One racing boats with carbon fiber, and I thought, maybe I can use that technology to build a guitar. So I was just developing my technique, always on acoustic guitars, but I was an electric guitar enthusiast. I'm not quite sure how that worked. I think I just decided to take the harder path.
Yeah.
And but I went and saw Steve Vai play for the very first time live in Vicar Street in Dublin, and he was playing the Ultrazone tour.
Right.
So on the Ultrazone tour, the backdrop of the stage was the album cover, the Ultrazone album cover, which has this like alien character with a crazy alien biomechanical guitar, purely just a piece of artwork. That was the backdrop on stage. Steve came out with like a headgear thing on, kind of dressed like the alien, but he had a white Ibanez gem. And I looked at him and I looked at the backdrop and I thought, this is wrong. He needs that real guitar.
Yeah.
So literally the very next day, I decided I was going to go and start building that guitar.
I mean, that's not a small feat, because it's not even a guitar, and it's just the whole shape of it is bonkers.
I don't think it was ever really designed to be a functioning instrument. It was just a piece of artwork.
Right.
But it was, I think, a moment of pure inspiration. These things come along every now and again, where you feel compelled. And Steve asked me a number of years later, he said, what made you think you could build the Ultra guitar? It was a very simple answer. I didn't know I couldn't.
Right.
So I didn't know I could, but I didn't know I couldn't. So I set about it. But actually, the album was really cool because it doesn't just give you the front image. If you look at the back of the album, you actually see the back of the alien.
Oh, man.
So it looks like you can actually see both sides of the same piece of artwork.
Yeah.
Which is really unusual and unique.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really think of any other pieces of artwork where you can see both sides of it.
Yeah.
So that happened to be a really clever thing that worked in my favor, that I could see both the front and the back of the guitar. And but when I started to study it and line it out, I realized that the center of the guitar is actually pretty much to scale. It's just all the extra craziness that goes on the top and the bottom, but also the design doesn't include tuners. There's obviously strings there, but there was no tuners on a headstock.
So I'll stop you there, because every time that I was playing it, when I was trying to tune, I was like, and then, because it uses like a Steinberger trench, isn't it?
So the original one actually uses a Steinberger. There's a full Steinberger guitar in there, because this is back in my early days, and I wasn't maybe wanting to take on the entire process of building the entire guitar. So I thought because it was nearly impossible as well to buy the hardware. So I thought the easiest thing to do is get the little cricket bat Steinberger, the little small one.
Oh, is that what you did?
So that's what I got, was one of those, and so that became the center, and then I formed all the crazy shape then on top of that and skinned it all with carbon fiber. Amazing. So that's how I went about building it. But I started building it and started to send some emails off to make some contact with Steve's management to see if I could get it to him if I was to build it. And that fell on deaf ears. I just couldn't manage to make any connection with his inner circle. I think you know, a lot of other things going on, so I set the project aside a little bit. It was, you know, half made, the overall shape was there made, but it wasn't anyway near a finished guitar. So I went to NAMM show, and you've been to NAMM show.
Yeah.
You know how crazy NAMM is, and you know how crazy the entourage is around and the crowd around Steve Vai.
Yeah.
You know, he's one of the biggest draws there. He's always there every year signing at the Ibanez booth, and there's like a line about a mile long waiting to see him. And maybe I'm not patient enough to stand in line that long. So I didn't think to try and do that, but I was walking down one of the side corridors, and I was walking past the Naris booth. It was like kind of off really in the hallway, rather than in the main hall. And I was walking past, I looked to the side and I was like, that's Steve Vai. And there was Steve Vai sitting doing a unscheduled signing at the Naris booth.
No entourage.
Nobody else really there. There's like, I think 3 or 4 people standing around him wanting to get an autograph. So I literally was able to pretty much walk straight up.
Awesome.
And I said, Steve. I introduced myself and I said I was from Ireland. He said, well, I was actually just working on a piece that we recorded in Dublin this morning in the studio. So I kind of made a little bit of a connection with him. And I said, well, the Ultra guitar, I've been started building it. Would you be interested in seeing it if I ever actually finish it? He said, yeah, send an email to this guy, Rich Pike, wrote down an email address, signed his autograph, handed me a piece of paper, and that was pretty much it. Shook my hand and went my way. So I went back and I spent about 1,000 hours completing the Ultra guitar.
Oh my word.
So I worked it out. There's about 1,000 hours in it. And I was just like, okay, I've been in now. I have to complete this. I have to do it. And I built it. And I completed it. And I had the email address. And I took a picture or a few pictures and sent them to the email address. Heard nothing.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, this is awful. I've put my life into this. I have to get this to Steve. So I got everybody involved that I could possibly think of to try and make contact. And then I think it was my brother-in-law in California. Finally, he contacted somebody through, I think, the Favored Nations record label, Steve's record label. And I got an email on a Wednesday morning saying, Steve would love to see the guitar. Could you bring it to his house?
Awesome.
On Saturday. This was a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I'm in Ireland.
Yeah.
I don't think they realised I was in Ireland. But I didn't go emailing back and go, well, no, I can't come, or, you know, can I do it next week? I was like, yeah, I'll be there. So that was a Wednesday. There was an issue of a little hum in the pickups. So that night I went to my friend's house, who was a luthier, to try and see if we could work out what it was. Eventually found it was an earth issue. Sorted that out. Watched Liverpool win the UEFA Cup that night.
Awesome.
I'll never forget it.
You're a Liverpool fan, is that your?
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah. So one eye was on the guitar, the other eye was in the other room looking at the football. Went straight to Bath to get Guitarist magazine to photograph the guitar. They had said they wanted to do a feature on it.
Awesome.
Spent all day there after not sleeping, exhausted. Got on a flight, took the guitar to LA. And there I was rocking up at Steve Vai's house.
So when you were flying, was that guitar in the hold, or was it?
Oh my goodness, you can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah.
I had to put it in the hold. So I can remember actually in Dublin, getting on the flight, and they said, well, it's oversized, you're going to have to leave it over here on this trolley for oversized luggage. And you probably experienced this, you know, it's like you have to leave it at a different place. And I remember there was a trolley, and they said, just put it there in that trolley. I'm not just leaving this guitar here. I've put 1,000 hours into it. I'm not just leaving it there. I'm going to wait with it. And eventually a guy came up to gather stuff up, and there was like lots of stuff sitting. And I can remember it. There was a drum band that had like cajones and things, and they had left them all sitting, and this guy was stacking all this luggage onto this trolley, and put the cajon on the top, and the next thing it went bouncing off the floor. Oh, you ain't taking this. So eventually I had to get them to bring somebody else, and they did, and they took it away. And I was sitting on the plane, and I saw it on one of those trolley things going across the runway, sitting on top.
What's it packed in?
It was in its case that I'd made for it.
Okay.
Yeah, so of course, like when you make the ultra guitar, you don't just make a case. It's got its own little spaceship, let's say. So like this crazy silver pod that I made for it as well. Very, very cool. But there was it going across the runway, and I'm watching it out the window of the plane. You know, it's like, you know, your worst nightmare.
Yeah.
But it got there. Got there intact. Got it to LA intact. There was no problem. And yeah, but that was nervous. It's like, you know, checking in your child or something.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's ingrained in my memory. But yeah, went to LA, met Rich Pike. He brought me to Steve's house, and I remember hanging out, actually waiting for Steve to come back. He was off, I don't know, swimming or something that morning, and I was hanging out at his house, and his two sons were there. So I'm like hanging out playing with Steve Vai's kids in his garden. I'm like, this is just the craziest thing ever. You know, I'm a Steve Vai fan.
Yeah.
I was, let me see, 25 at the time, something like that. It was just totally surreal. And got to sit down in the studio, went into the Harmony Hut, took it in there, opened up the case, and I'll never forget his first words was, "Holy shit."
Really?
It's just like, it was such an impact.
Yeah.
But what a moment for me. Ultrazone tour was finished. That was done and dusted. But so I gave the guitar to Steve, and this was the first guitar that was ever leaving my possession.
Yeah.
You know, so the other guitars were experimental. This was the first electric guitar that I'd ever made. Oh. This was the first guitar that was going to leave my possession, and it was going to the guy who inspired me to buy my first guitar.
Amazing.
You know, it was just, I kind of peaked too soon.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It was like peaked on day one.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a moment. So Steve said to me, he said, "I can't accept this." He said, "I want you to take it home." But that wasn't going to happen. I mean, it was like, "Steve, I made this for you. It's just a sculpture if I own it. It's a guitar if you own it." Mm-hmm. So Steve said, "Right, okay. So I'm going to go and get something for you." So he went off into his house and come back with a jar of honey. And I said, "Well, here's something in return that I've made for something that you've made." And it was the most perfect payment for what I did.
Yeah.
You know, no amount of money would have been better than that jar of honey. Just something really significant about it.
Yeah.
So the guitar then stayed in his possession, and you know, he, by his own admission, that he'd never really played it. Played it that day whenever I was delivering it, but it was put on a wall.
Yeah.
And he just kind of assumed that, you know, it's probably not, you know, a great playing guitar. It's too weird. Mm-hmm. And he'd never put it on a strap, so he'd only ever played sitting down. Mm-hmm. And then he was going out on a new tour. I think it was 2012. And I met him. I went over to Holland for one of his orchestra shows. After that show, he said to me that evening, he said, "I'm taking the ultra guitar out on tour." And I was I didn't even take it in. I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." And then I thought about what he said. I was like, "You're taking what on tour?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm taking the ultra guitar on tour." So, you know, anybody that knows Steve, his music and his tours, he always likes to have something that's, you know, a real centerpiece. Mm-hmm. You know, there's like the triple neck heart guitar, or the latest is the Hydra guitar. Yeah. There's always something that in the middle of the show is just an interlude that's like, you know, off the wall. Mm-hmm. So he wanted to do that with the ultra guitar.
Amazing.
And I couldn't believe it. You know, I thought that guitar was never going to see stage use. But he did. he took it out. He actually, here's the really funny thing, and only Steve Vai could ask you this. You build like what's probably the craziest guitar in the world, bizarre shape, looks like it's unplayable, and he said, could we do something to give it a little bit more stage presence? Are you serious? So I brought it back to Ireland, and we added LEDs and lasers to it, as you do.
As you do, yeah. Yeah, you've all got that in our guitars.
Yeah. So you need it. So yeah, I brought it back, and actually I was really happy to get it back because I was like, sure this guitar is not playable. So I wanted to give it a good once over. Actually I didn't have to change anything. Everything on it played perfectly.
Because of the carbon fibre and all that.
Yeah. Just the whole, I don't know, I just nailed it first time and that. So it was great playing guitar. We just added the lasers and stuff, and also Steve had agreed that we could take a mold off it. So because it was a one-off, there was no actual mold for it, and we made a mold from it. So that's kind of the story. I went to Fort Lauderdale, to Florida, to see Steve play with it for the very first time.
Amazing.
Mind-blowing experience. And then the really cool one was when he came back to that same stage that I saw him playing the Ultrazone tour all those years previously, the stage that I got inspired to see him play, and he played with the ultra guitar on that stage.
There's also a little twist to the story that happened a couple of days ago, isn't there?
Yeah, so Steve had always said to me that it should come back to me at some stage, and there was a lady writing a book about us a few years ago, and in the interview, Steve told her that he was leaving it to me in his will, that it was going to be left to me and come back to me at some stage. Nice. So last week I sent Steve a video of our factory tour walk around, and I was really proud to show him, because when I made him that guitar in the first place, I was making it in a back shed, an old stone cow shed really, and to have a beautiful modern factory facility has spiraled so much from what he's done for me. So I showed him the video, and there's a walk through, and I was going through the front hall, and in the video I mentioned the ultra guitar, and so he sent me a little email and said, well, the one thing that would finish off that space was having the real ultra guitar there. So Steve is he's very kindly said he's going to arrange to have it sent back. So
amazing.
I'm going to have to see if he'll actually come back and bring it back in person, because I'd love to see him with it and there, but he's a busy guy. So
as well.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to do that in person.
Well, that's amazing. Like, considering that guitar, that guitarist inspired this awesome company that you've created, and these awesome instruments that you've created, and it all just came from, your friend playing you that album, and then creating that guitar for him, and then now you create all these fantastic instruments. It's just a great story.
Well, you see, I think the thing that really hits me about music is how inspiring it is. Mm-hmm. I'm inspired by music that inspires me to build guitars that then in turn inspire people.
Yeah.
It's this loop of continual inspiration. And our motto at Emerald Guitars isn't that we build great guitars or anything. It's to make and inspire music. That's our pure existence, and that's the thing that we measure everything we do by. Does it make and inspire music? And I think, that's what hit me. It was Steve Vai's music that inspired me. And in turn we now get to go on and inspire others with it. But
amazing.
it's it gives me goosebumps even telling the story.
Imagine.
Because it's a very pure story. It's something that I feel very privileged to have found my true calling early in life. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was just one of those things that everything just came together perfectly.
Yeah, just want to say thanks for inviting me along this week. It's been absolutely amazing.
Oh, it's been great to have you here. This has been a pretty epic week.
So there's also going to be more footage coming where I'm going to be doing a whole sort of tour or showing the footage from the tour, but it's been absolutely amazing and highly recommended if you guys want to come in the future. So yes, watch this space. That's the hardest guitar to play.